Vice President Maybelline was making the rounds, attempting to defend his boss and the chairman of the FCC with a new fairy tale even a 5-year-old wouldn't believe.
Celebrities are rallying to his cause, saying this is a First Amendment assault being carried out by the FCC, Brendan Carr, and by the President of the United States himself. And to that, you say?
Well, there are two things. First of all, I'd like them to tell me exactly what Brendan Carr did to have Jimmy Kimmel taken off the air, because number one, he is currently on the air, and to the extent that he isn't in certain stations, it's because he's not funny and because his ratings aren't very good.
I have some good news for you, J-Dog. We're back on all the stations.
The show kicks off live from Brooklyn. The band is playing. The crowd is locked in, and Jimmy Kimmel stares right into the camera like he's been saving his best joke for the perfect moment. He brings up J.D. Vance's claim on Fox that Kimmel was taken off TV because of bad ratings, then pauses just long enough to let the moment sink in before firing back with a line that gets the whole room laughing. He says, "Good news, J-Dog. We're back on every station, in every home, every bar, every strip club," and then tops it all off by jokingly calling him Vice President Maybelline. The timing, the confidence, and the delivery make it feel less like a prepared punchline and more like the kind of comeback he'd been waiting to use all along.
First of all, Kimmel was taken off the air because he had low ratings, because the late night talk show host model is not doing particularly well, and let's be honest, because he had become so politically unhinged that I think he wasn't particularly funny. Now, the FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, put out a couple of tweets, but the government took no action. We did literally nothing to try to take Jimmy Kimmel off the air. We believe in free speech. We also believe in the right of a television station or a network to cancel somebody because of low ratings. And I think it's a little bit rich. The second point I make, Rashad, is it's a little bit rich for people to say that somehow we're engaged in censorship when literally every day, including yesterday, we found out that Google and YouTube were censoring information at the height of COVID at the direction of the Biden administration. So if we're looking for real sources of the government driving censorship, we should be looking at the policies of the Biden administration. We absolutely reject censorship in the Trump administration. We don't want to prevent anybody from speaking their mind, but if a TV station wants to cancel a guy because he's not funny, that's their business.
The audience immediately gets it because this isn't just another joke. It's backed up by what actually happened. Jimmy Kimmel Live had already returned on the major Nexstar and Sinclair affiliate stations that had briefly stopped airing the show. So he wasn't just throwing out a punchline. He was pointing to real events with perfect comic timing. That context is important because just days earlier, Kimmel had been suspended from ABC for 6 days after a monologue that sparked a wave of online outrage. Disney brought him back the following Tuesday, but some of the biggest station groups continued keeping the show off the air for a while, making his comeback joke land even harder.
To interrupt your bull, go on.
There's something else that's important here, Laura, which is that these broadcast companies, ABC, NBC, CBS, they enjoy the public airwaves because they serve the public interest. So I actually think that we should be having a conversation about whether these companies are serving the public interest. That's actually totally separate from the Jimmy Kimmel issue because nothing happened to him. He's currently on the air, and to the extent that he's not, it's because advertisers don't like him because his ratings aren't very good.
My ratings aren't very good. Last time I checked, your ratings were somewhere between a hair in your salad and chlamydia. In 3.5 years, I'm not the one who's going to be doing mascara tutorials on YouTube. How did we wind up with a president and a vice president who wear more makeup than Kylie Jenner and Lady Gaga combined? The President of the United States made it very clear he wants to see me and the hundreds of people who work here fired from our jobs. Our leader celebrates Americans losing their livelihoods because he can't take a joke. He was somehow able to squeeze Colbert out of CBS. Then he turned his sights on me, and now he's openly rooting for NBC to fire Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers and the hundreds of Americans who work for their shows who don't make me.
Said I'm a never Trump guy, never liked him, terrible candidate, idiot if you voted for him, might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole, cultural heroine, noxious and reprehensible.
Look, I was wrong about Donald Trump. I didn't think he was going to be a good president, Brett. He was a great president.
I didn't know you meant that, Donald Trump.
Trump celebrated from the sidelines, while J.D. Vance tried to frame the whole situation as nothing more than a ratings problem. But then everything changed. Sinclair reversed its decision, Nexstar followed. And suddenly the claim that Kimmel had been taken off the air because of bad ratings didn't match the reality of his nationwide return. With a live audience cheering him on, Kimmel did what great comedians do when the facts are on their side. He turned them into comedy. He didn't just say, "We're back." He used the moment to remind everyone what had actually happened. And once the cameras were rolling again, trade publications and news outlets began documenting the full story behind his return.
Tylenol. It's been overwhelming. I've heard from a lot of people over the last 6 days. I've heard from all the people in the world over the last 6 days. Everyone I have ever met has reached out 10 or 11 times. Weird characters from my past the guy who fired me from my first radio job in Seattle, where we are not airing tonight, by the way. Sorry, Seattle. His name is Larry. In 1989, Larry tried to force me to do a bit called Jokes for Donuts, where people would call in with a joke and I would give them donuts. I refused to do it, and then I made a lot of fun of Larry for suggesting it, and eventually Larry fired me, and I had to move back in with my parents. But even he wrote in to cheer me up. Thank you, Larry, and I want to thank everyone who checked in.
When the show came back, it delivered some of its strongest ratings in years before settling into numbers that were still higher than they had been before the suspension, which isn't exactly what you'd expect if nobody was watching. J.D. Vance could keep repeating the same talking point, but Kimmel had ratings data and nationwide distribution to point to instead. Those are two very different arguments, and one of them is backed by evidence. There was also another part of the story that Vance largely ignored. While he was appearing on Fox and downplaying the political side of the controversy, pressure was building elsewhere as FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr publicly called on ABC and Disney to take action, even suggesting they could do it the easy way or the hard way, a remark that many saw as raising serious First Amendment concerns.
All week to list all of them, but some that I do especially want to mention are my fellow late-night talk show hosts, my friend Stephen Colbert, who found himself in this predicament, my friends Jon Stewart, Seth Meyers, Jimmy Fallon, John Oliver, Conan O'Brien, James Corden, Arsenio, Kathy, Wanda, Chelsea, even Jay reached out. Sometimes I wonder in what world is the vice president of the United States calling into a giant-toothed podcast host to badmouth me and the people who watch this show.
There are these judges. Judge Boasberg comes to mind. Lots of judges who are trying to basically say the president can't exercise the powers of the presidency.
After facing criticism from lawmakers and people across the industry, Brendan Carr said he had never threatened anyone's broadcast licenses and argued that he was only raising concerns about media distortion. Still, the sequence of events remained the same. Kimmel was pulled from affiliate stations. The controversy surrounding the FCC reached its peak. Disney brought him back, and the affiliate stations eventually restored the show as well. Kimmel wove all of that context into his monologue so naturally that the joke carried a much bigger point beneath the laughter. From his perspective, it wasn't simply a ratings story when a federal regulator was publicly weighing in. It looked more like a period of intense pressure, followed by a cleanup once the situation settled down.
He is running the country like it's one of his businesses. He said he would. Just to give you some perspective, the government being shut down is even worse than when it's up and running. Republicans would like you to believe that Democrats shut the government down, but the bill they wanted the Democrats to sign would knock out about 15 million Americans from health insurance. If this bill passes, your health insurance premiums could go up 75%, so there was no way the Democrats could vote for it. It's like like going to dinner and the waiter says, you must order lasagna, the chef made it today, and a bunch of you are going to get food poisoning from it. But if you don't eat it, you've ruined the meal. That's the Garfield version of what's going on right now.
Back in Brooklyn, Kimmel didn't stop after calling J.D. Vance Vice President Maybelline. He kept the momentum going, piling on joke after joke. He mocked what he described as the administration's heavy makeup habits, then joked that after 3.5 years, he wasn't the one making mascara tutorials. From there, he turned his attention to Trump. joking about the release of Amelia Earhart files while criticizing the lack of any Epstein-related disclosures. That last joke wasn't subtle at all. It made it clear to the audience that, in Kimmel's view, attention was being directed toward headline-grabbing stories instead of the issues he believed people were really focused on.
There is some silver lining to the shutdown. According to their official website, during the shutdown, our friends at the FCC will cease their response to consumer complaint and inquiry phone lines, which I'm not a lawyer, but I think means we can now say whatever we want on TV, right? To being a direct violation of the First Amendment is not a particularly intelligent threat to make in public. Ted Cruz said he sounded like a mafioso. Although, I don't know, if you want to hear a mob boss make a threat like that, you have to hide a microphone in a deli and park outside in a van with a tape recorder all night long. This genius said it on a podcast. Brendan Carr is the most embarrassing car Republicans have embraced since this.
Kimmel thrives on the contradictions. Trump rails against elites while living like one, dining on gold-plated steaks in properties that rent out his name like it's...
How long you worked here?
A year.
Okay. Donut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which donut, though?
Just whatever makes sense. No pickles. Hold the pickles.
Oh, well, no, I can get that for you.
The audience laughed because they already knew the setup, and the punchline landed because it was built on something they recognized. Before long, the debate flared up again as J.D. Vance repeated the claim that Kimmel's suspension was all about poor ratings, keeping the same talking point alive on television that had given Kimmel the perfect opening for his jokes in the first place. At the same time, some conservative media voices tried to connect Kimmel's suspension to Disney's broader business struggles, arguing that changes in the company's streaming numbers somehow prove people no longer want his late-night show on broadcast television.
There's a tradition of meddling where they shouldn't under many administrations, but it wasn't always like this. There was an FCC commissioner back in 2022 who worked under Joe Biden who was spot on. He wrote, "President Biden is right. Political satire is one of the oldest and most important forms of free speech. It challenges those in power while using humor to draw more people into the discussion. That's why people in influential positions have always targeted it for censorship." You know who wrote that? FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr. Our freedom to speak is what they admire most about this country. And that's something I'm embarrassed to say I took for granted until they pulled my friend Stephen off the air and tried to coerce the affiliates who run our show in the cities that you live in to take my show off the air. That's not legal. That's not American. That is un-American, and it is so dangerous.
The brilliance of Kimmel's roast lies in how he treats...
Kimmel didn't push back against the story with dramatic language or emotional claims. He answered it with simple facts: stations, dates, audiences back on Tuesday, restored by Friday, and jokes ready by Monday. That's why the moment in Brooklyn hit so hard. When you put a rumor next to a clear timeline of what actually happened, it starts to look exactly like what it is: a rumor. Looking at the way everything unfolded, it's easy to see why so many people felt Kimmel had completely outmatched J.D. Vance on live TV. Vance made the claim during his appearance on Laura Ingram's show. Kimmel replayed it for his audience, answered it with what he presented as evidence, and topped it off with a nickname that was memorable enough to stick long after the jokes were over.
They call me creepy, cringy, awkward, that I give people something called the ick. They want you to think that I can't order a simple donut.
Was appointed chairman of the FCC by this former crusader for free speech.
If we don't have free speech, then we just don't have a free country. It's as simple as that. If this most fundamental right is allowed to perish, then the rest of our rights and liberties will topple. Just like dominoes, one by one, they'll go down.
That was also in 2022. And I wonder, how did that guy turn into this guy?
Who would you like to see replace Kimmel on late night?
A lot of people, anybody could replace him. The guy had no talent. Kimmel had
fired. He had no talent. He's a whack job, but he had no talent. And more importantly than talent, he had no, because a lot of people have no talent.
Kimmel didn't need to shout or make a dramatic scene. He simply framed the story in a way that challenged the narrative without ever raising his voice. That's what made the moment so effective. Big reactions or claims of someone losing it only really work when there's something genuine behind them, and in this case, the contrast spoke for itself. While J.D. Vance kept insisting the story was about poor ratings, television stations were actively putting Kimmel's show back on their schedules. The audience didn't need a chart or a long explanation to understand the point. They heard the jokes, saw the timeline unfold, and connected the dots on their own.
How do you assess the legal battles here?
Yeah, I bet all those judges are huge fans of Jimmy Kimmel, by the way. But I think, Vince, that, one, we have an appeals process.
Not that. It's just me, Jimmy, the chairman of the FCC, gently suggesting that you gently shut the up.
But you can't say that. That's a violation of free speech.
Oh, yeah, about that. Speech, it ain't free no more.
What? It's not free no more?
Yeah, we're charging by the word now.
You're charging by the word? How much are you charging?
Depends on what you want to say. Like, you want to say something nice about the president's beautiful, thick yellow hair, or how he can do his makeup better than any broad. That's free.
Here's the full sequence laid out as clearly as possible, so the timeline is easy to follow. ABC suspended Jimmy Kimmel for 6 days. Trump publicly celebrated the decision, and J.D. Vance went on Fox and claimed it was all because of bad ratings. ABC then brought the show back, but Sinclair and Nexstar continued keeping off the air in several key markets for a period of time as pressure from viewers, advertisers, and the political backlash continued to build. Eventually, Sinclair reversed his decision, Nexstar followed, and the show was fully restored. Meanwhile, FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr maintained that he had never threatened anyone, saying his comments were never intended as threats against broadcast licenses.
I don't agree with many of those people on most subjects. Some of the things they say even make me want to throw up. It takes courage for them to speak out against this administration, and they did, and they deserve credit for it, and thanks. For telling your followers that our government cannot be allowed to control what we do and do not say on television, and that we have to stand up to it. I've been hearing a lot about what I need to say and do tonight, and the truth is, I don't think what I have to say is going to make much of a difference. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. I have no illusions.
Even as Brendan Carr insisted he hadn't threatened anyone, he spent the following week explaining his easy way or the hard way comment to reporters and members of Congress, some of whom criticized the remark as creating the impression of censorship without an explicit threat. Then Kimmel stepped onto the stage in Brooklyn, read J.D. Vance's quote to the audience, pointed out the stations that had restored his show, delivered the Vice President Maybelline joke, and tied the entire moment back to the timeline of what had actually happened with a smile. After the show's return, the ratings jumped, eventually settling above their previous average, while the story Vance had been promoting became much harder to defend against the backdrop of Kimmel's return and the restored broadcast schedule. In the end, the sequence wasn't especially complicated. It was simply how the television story unfolded.
Seriously, if that guy walked into your office and told you he was there to start making cuts.
I have friends who met a husband, a wife, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, who met the best man at their wedding at Turning Points USA because it was an organization of patriots dedicated to making this country the very best country that it...
So, the bottom line is this. J.D. Vance repeated a claim, and Jimmy Kimmel answered it by pointing to what he presented as the facts on live television. That's what made the moment resonate with so many people. Sometimes the strongest comedy doesn't come from exaggeration. It comes from letting the facts speak for themselves. Kimmel didn't need to invent a new storyline. He simply repeated Vance's own words, pointed to stations that were once again carrying his show, and let the audience connect the dots. That approach turned the joke into something bigger, showing how a simple timeline and a few well-placed punchlines could challenge a narrative without ever feeling forced.
You talk to the chairman of the FCC.
You don't need to know my name, and I am the new chairman of the FCC.
You were appointed FCC chairman by Donald Trump?
Sir Trump, yes. I used to do some work for the man here and there in Atlantic City.
But did I just hear you on the phone threatening Whoopi Goldberg?
No, I would never threaten Miss Goldstein. I was just teaching her a lesson about consequences.
No, well, pardon me for saying so. Maybe you're the wrong guy to talk to, but it seems like the FCC is using mob tactics to suppress free speech.
What the did you just say?
My mother.
We are definitely not driving back to our... The brunt of the effect of the shutdown, it will be felt right here in New York. To punish you for disliking him, Trump is putting $18 billion worth of New York City infrastructure projects, like the new rail tunnels under the Hudson and the 2nd Avenue subway project, on hold to make sure the money isn't being used to support DEI. Apparently, they think trans stands for transportation over there, and they want to stop it. This is clearly an abuse of power to punish the city. And New York City infrastructure projects are not supposed to be delayed because Trump wants to strong-arm Democrats into cutting health care. They're supposed to be delayed because they're New York City infrastructure projects.
If you enjoyed the Vice President Maybelline joke, let me know your favorite line in the comments. If you follow the show's return station by station, tell me which affiliate you were waiting to see bring Kimmel back. And if you're here for straightforward breakdowns that compare public claims with the timeline and the available facts, make sure to subscribe. We'll keep following the story whenever new claims emerge and see how they hold up against what actually happens.